This is my audience. Good evening. I'd like to talk with you tonight about one of the most memorable and profound speeches of all times, and that is Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Now, I know each and every one of you has either seen the video of the speech or read the speech, and so I'll just give a brief background and just a little detail about the speech. The speech takes place August 28, 1963 in Washington, D.C. in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And people are there in support of the March on Washington for Freedom and Jobs. And so Dr. Martin Luther King is there giving his speech. And in his speech, he urges America to make good on the promise that they made to the black Americans. And that is the promise for freedom, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so not only does he urge America to make good on the promise, in his speech he also encourages the black Americans to remain hopeful and to keep their integrity while going through this time. Now, as I watched the video, I noticed something that was interesting, and that was the audience. Now, if I hadn't watched the video, I would have assumed that the audience consisted of thousands of black Americans. But instead, it consisted of thousands and thousands of black and white Americans. And so I thought that was interesting that the very people that could help make this change was there in the audience to support this cause. Now, as I envisioned myself as an audience member, I could feel the emotion of the speech. I could feel, at some point, I could feel the pain, and then at other times I could feel the empowerment, and then also I could sense the urgency in the speech. Dr. Martin Luther King had an urgency in the speech that change must happen, and it must happen now. Now, not only did I look at the video of the speech, I also read the speech. And when I read the speech, I noticed that each sentence of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech was critical. And I mean that this means that each sentence in his speech could have been the most important sentence of the speech. And that's because each one of his sentences was clear, it was vivid, and it was specific. And so not only is Dr. Martin Luther King very articulate, I also noticed that he is the master of imagery. And that means when he speaks, and the way he speaks and the words that he uses, you can visualize what he's saying. And so I pulled out a sentence from his speech to give you an example. It says, "Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood." So immediately when I read that sentence, I could see the nation sinking in this quicksand of injustice as it is today. And I could see Dr. Martin Luther King saying now is the time for America, for blacks and whites, to get together and pull our nation out of this quicksand and place it on a solid rock of brotherhood. You know, he wanted us to place this nation on a solid, firm foundation of love and of unity. And so, like I said, immediately when I read that, that's what I visualized. Now, the last thing I want to point out to you about this speech that makes it great is the fact of how he organized the speech. Dr. Martin Luther King started the speech out with the promise that was given to the black Americans, and then he spoke about the unfulfillment of that promise, and then he demanded change and reform, and then he rested the speech upon peace and hope. And so as I come to a close, I just recommend that each one of you revisit that speech, and because that's a great speech, and I learned a lot from that speech. And one of the things that I did learn was that if your speech is audience-centered, and if your speech is ethical, it could make for a great speech. And I also learned that Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech was a true reflection of his character, and that is powerfulness, positivity, and peacefulness. Thank you.